Hey guys, here I am with the 7th part of Black Squad Motorcycle Criminal Organization. Yeah, a lot to do, a lot to hustle. Hustling, that's how it is when you get into this game. At least with a motorcycle club and try to live it, especially in these 1% structures. Then the dedication is there, of course, with a 1% club, it's 100%. Everything revolves around that, total focus on it. The first party didn't go the way we imagined, and we knew, okay, we have to do something. We have to somehow get the other clubs on board. We also can't forget that at this time a lot was going on, a kind of restructuring in the motorcycle scene in 2008. In 2009, it was all about quantity, quantity, quantity. In the clubs, you'll find hooligans, Nazis, and young criminals. Migrants, regular people, people together who at 40 want to relive it somehow, or at 50 and want to be rockers. This big patch is for those who are very, very different. They come together and the clubs expand. They have discovered East Germany for themselves, and it's about territories, and everyone is moving. People are really moving, and everyone always gets really nervous when clubs tend to go somewhere. Yeah, so the standard question was, I want to join the committee now too. I don't want to offend motorcycle. I know they're the biggest German club with the most members or something, but committee didn't really have that much, the prestige, the appeal to many of the hardcore criminals. Because there were, you could say today, there were also real bikers involved who did it also because of the two. They didn't do it just for the money or the power. That's why the club didn't have that kind of reputation, because there was so much, such a mix of people, including those who weren't seen as tough by others. And because of that, I think I have to sneeze. All right, I'll try to hold it back. Sorry, guys. And that's why the attention always went towards, of course, Hells Angels and Bandidos Motorcycle, who had the place. The rough places were where nobody really wanted to go. But those who were above it all, you were immediately asked in the club, what are you? Are you more red gold or red white? And where do you lean? Who do you support? Who's with you? Who calls the shots there? You have to understand that a bit for what keeps happening later on in this series anyway. We had written on our Black Sheep banner that we don't support anyone, and we wanted to stick to that very strictly. How things turned out later on, we'll get to that. I know I always say we'll get to it, but we really will get to it somehow. And for us, after that party, it was clear, okay, we had done it in those zip-up jackets that we had printed ourselves, and now we had the patches made, and eventually they arrived in really awesome quality, really double layered with thick stitching, and they were solid as hell. At first, really solid. Why a thin board? And the customers had them made, collected at the shoemaker in our town, and then had them recorded. I also collected them, or had someone collect them. Collecting them sounds more like me, and Then we prepared for it. Okay, we should now, here too, we should now. We also have to do some kind of ritual like that, and normally I don't like to let things get taken out of my hands. Well, I do like to have control, like how things go, how does something work, where do we do it, and so on. And now with this initiation ritual, the big idea was, okay, the members who founded this club shouldn't do anything. The party is basically organized by our new prospects and by our women around us. They wanted to throw us a nice patch party. That's where the vest with the patches is handed over. Of course, you could have picked them up from the cobbler and just said, here, put them in the car and then drive to everyone's house and ring the bell and say, here, bro, your vest, here, have fun with it. Oh, brother and SSRV and Black Horde and all that. But those moments belong together, this being together, us and their photo, and that's an important element again and again in the clubs. This coming together with the same symbols, with the vests on and so on. That's also where the state really cracked down, that the symbols were banned, that they're not allowed to be shown in public. The ban on club symbols will certainly impact the clubs, as members want to display those symbols to show their affiliation. Showing service dogs in public with their vest and t-shirt has a greater impact than only displaying them on a chain or in a limited setting. Yeah, I handed that over. They said they would organize it. We didn't know anything about it. I already had certain expectations. I have to smile at myself because I think, well, you could have known. Anyway, it was like this patch party. I'll make an exception and put about 34 pictures into this video so you can see how it all went down. So now you'll see some pictures. They built a kind of guard of honor with buckets filled with sand and torches, and the digital camera was handed to a real expert who took these photos of our own patch party. And as you can see, they're all absolutely terrible. That's just how it is. So we arrived, there was this guard of honor with buckets, torches, and so on. The women were there, the comrades from Werewolf, the prospects, and so on. We arrived at this place. Back then, it was still called Holschreier in Wismar. We used to have our Werewolf clubhouse there. The Wolf's Den won from the Werewolf Club. By then, it had already been torn down, not collapsed, but demolished. So we did it under a kind of open hall. We arrived, and then someone said something. I can't remember the words because I was already kind of excited. We organized a bit, but yeah, we only put about 17 minutes into organizing it. I had imagined it a bit differently, not just outside with a torch in a bucket, and then it was kind of a bit loveless. I imagined it differently, but I can just smile about it for now, and the complaining will come later during the club meeting. Then, of course, it's a very important ritual, and you can already see its significance, and also how seriously you take yourself. Yes, of course, you can't just get the robe from a brochure. So you get the robe, then usually someone puts it on you, and then you're basically welcomed as a new member. As a prospect, you're standing there when they announce someone new is joining the family. The robe is held up, handed over to him, put on, or the patches are given to him, and then he's held up and then welcomed. Then you go to all the members, of course, starting with the board, president, vice president, blah, 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 to the members, and then later to everyone else, and then everyone congratulates you somehow. There are very strict orders for that. It's taken very, very seriously. Of course, as president and vice president, we gave each other the jackets, then congratulated each other, and then we called everyone up. Yes, then someone gave me the jacket, and then I was told, yes, the jacket is for Toman. So I called Toman, he walked down the line, and then, blah, blah, blah. Yes, we're proud to be part of it and have come a long way. We should honor the jacket forever, even though there are always black sheep. And even he stands next to it, could do it like that. And then everyone, yes, and then I call the next one up. What do I see? And now Klaus, yes, the one who used to be called Carlos, I got that mixed up, but now he's called Klaus, or I said Klaus. Klaus comes up, and then you move next to the cutter. Nice that you're here, and we push through, we don't let ourselves be stopped, yes. A few personal words for everyone, otherwise whispered, and everyone is greeted by the president, and then you go down, and then you just stand there. You can imagine it, I don't need to go through everyone now. That's when it's done, when all the full members are standing there, then photos are taken. Yes, then you also have to be here, like this, and look grim, and so on. Yes, today it feels a bit silly, looking grim just doesn't work anymore. It appears to be facial paralysis on my small monitor, that's the situation. Then, of course, the prospects come in. You call them up and say, yes, you give them a bit of pressure with the first honor, get involved, don't disappoint us when we give you the chance, and so on. Yes, we printed things ourselves, opened them up, and said, yes, we are president and super president and universe. And to the others, you say, you have to make an effort. Oh God, I just can't get out of the mess. It's like that because these flashbacks are like that for me, because you elevated yourself to a certain status and gave others the status of, no, you have to be a prospect now. Do things for 2 years that we command. And that's just how it was. That's just how it was accepted. It's hard to explain. It has a very it has a very masculine approach, and you have to like those structures, this hyper masculinity, hierarchies, and so on. Yeah, this ritual somehow. There isn't even a good photo of this ritual. When you get the pictures the next day, they already tell you on the phone, you better not look at them. And I'm like, what kind of message is that? Yeah, there's not a single decent photo among them, and so on. And the video didn't work at all. Everything was totally chaotic because somehow it wasn't with flash and was shot against all the torches and so on. And then, of course, you want to show the pictures. Yeah, we were also partly Facebook bikers, you know, nowadays neo-Nazis, bikers, everyone uses social media somehow. We wanted to present it too and say, look, you know, this is how it is here. See, it wasn't all exactly as you expected. So then you do this ritual, you take them in, hand over the vest, and you think everything's going to run smoothly now. And then the first thing already happened, the first thing that really hit hard, where I said, not at all. I realized at the end that he had already said we had someone with us right away who really wanted to join, who I think didn't even know what the motorcycle in the name stands for. Yeah, I can say it again. It stands for Motorcycle Club, which means you need a motorcycle. Then he got himself a new dog and so on. And I was just, you know, worn out with people, you know, when something's wrong. Yeah, and when you have something negative to address, you have to talk about it. It doesn't get resolved just by changing your number or not getting in touch anymore or ignoring someone and so on. I always say adults take care of their problems. And that's the first thing you should deal with. You do that on Monday morning and don't put it off, not until Friday, or say you'll do it next week and so on. Yeah, and then I can't reach someone, and then I already hear, oh, now he got the patch too, and whether he'll make it and so on. And then he didn't pick up when I called, so we drove by and rang the bell. And that really gets you angry because you're in this tunnel vision and you say, we gave you the chance, you want to join the coolest, most awesome motorcycle club in the world. Yeah, and then you treat us like this. And then it really happened that shortly after this, just imagine the club was founded maybe 3 months ago or so. And after 3 months, and you just did a patch handover ritual with him, and after 3 months, you already have to kick out the first one. Kick out. Yeah, the one who practically begged for it. Yeah. And then you go to him and he doesn't understand it at all. And then a conversation like that, you have to imagine it goes like this. You're full of anger, yeah. And you go there with several people anyway, which already has more impact because this one person has to defend himself against everyone at once, verbally or maybe even physically. Yeah, you can tell. So you're out ringing the doorbell there. And I said, like, get the jacket, get all the t-shirts, everything you already ordered, everything you got, get the stuff now, man. Yeah, nothing, or else there's going to be trouble right here, you know. And of course, you can already tell that in that moment, I wasn't friends with him, but that in that moment, there was not only this relationship with the club breaks, but also the people who brought him in, that this friendship is actually no longer possible. And you must not forget that. That's what I keep preaching. When you join, I'll say it, I'll really reduce it to 1%er clubs, but other clubs are also very, very, even motorcycle friends can be very nasty and mean about it. Quick note, if you want to support us, my book, Hassmacht, is out now. It's a Spiegel bestseller about violence. The brand behind the product, King Among the Kongs, check it out. Below the video, you'll find links to support our work in de-radicalization and anti-violence efforts online and in schools. Please give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or leave a comment. It all helps. Thanks, and ahoy, the video continues. You have friends who are involved, you want to join in yourself, you get involved and you can't manage it, and you mess something up within the club. It doesn't even have to be anything dramatic. I can tell you 90% of the time, the friendship that was there before will also be ruined. That just doesn't mix well. Sometimes clubs even issue bans. Yeah, when someone is really out on bad terms, in bad standing, or even in, let's say, a bad left, because a left doesn't always mean it was good, like they left on good or normal terms. But even then, there are sensitivities because they didn't want to declare bad standing. There are also orders from clubs in those cases, like not to hang out with that person anymore, not to be friends with them, and so on. Club order always takes priority over friendship, and one must consider this carefully as it can cause relationships to fall apart. Yeah, and then of course, that's when it comes out, and that's how it was for me too. Always this feeling of, how dare you mess with me? How dare you mess with a club? You better know what you're getting yourself into. So why do you even join in? Why do you take part in this ritual? Why are you forcing us to treat you like crap now? Why are you maybe forcing us to use violence against you? You're just turning it around. Because that's the sense of honor. You feel humiliated? Some people will recognize that too. Hashtag I know it. As soon as it comes to honor, to I was humiliated, and like, how can he treat me like that? For a lot of people, and for me in the past too, all the fuses just blew, and I felt like I had to totally lose it over these things. If someone had given me the justification for violence, it's important to consider, what does justification for violence even mean? And when we kicked him out, and I preached to them, and said stuff like, what's up with your attitude? You're not worthy. You're such a loser. Take care of your dog and your girl. I don't care at all, man. Get out of our way. Don't talk to us. You're such a nobody, and whatever else. Any attempt to justify it would be dismissed as just your perspective. Or, well, you guys as a club have to prove yourselves first anyway. That would already be the justification for me to say, okay, let's beat him up now. From back then's point of view, in those situations, the best thing is just to let it happen, blah, blah, I'm a loser. Well, just like how people do it on the internet today, you're a traitor to the people, you're a traitor, and whatever else, woman, man, and then that's how it went. But the first time someone got kicked out, and that was also the difference, because I didn't like him, I didn't know him before either, and then I said, no more contact. And what do you think? Now you're hanging out with them in the club meeting closed. But for us, it wasn't just the first expulsion, but also the first voluntary resignation. And what's the difference? In theory, there's really no difference. We made the difference because of how important the person was. Sure, one guy got kicked out because he wasn't available and didn't know what he was getting into and so on. But now it was about Daniel. Danielle, the one I was in the drug business with, and the one I was with at the Red Devils, the one I became really, really good friends with. I had a very, very high level of trust in him. And then he said, he came up to me, came to my house and said, I don't think I can fulfill that, because he also held the position of sergeant, the drill instructor with us, before Klaus took it over, and Klaus took it over shortly after that. And yes, he said in the conversation, I don't think I can fulfill that. And I won't get this motorcycle with Rostock, but somehow we remain brothers, we look out for each other and so on. And that's when I realized my own double standards. And I think that's what I kept up in the club for a very long time. And that's why I'm aware of it, because this is also about my own reflection about how I behave towards people. And when it came to people who were close to me, who were important to me, I freaked out just as much as I did with someone who wasn't that important to me. But instead I said, I get it, and it's a shame and so on. Come on, give me the kuta. I say that in the club, or I've already talked to him about it, networked behind the scenes. And then I said, at the next club meeting, you just come and tell the guys and say, but we stick together, we make money together, do a bit of drug business and business together and so on. And if something goes wrong, you still come, you make it right, you show up with a gun and so on. And I manipulated it that way so I wouldn't lose my friendship there. With the others, I didn't care, I just manipulated it. I just had a very strong manipulative streak, but most people in these leadership structures, in clubs, street gangs, organized crime and so on, have to have that. You have to steer things a bit from behind the scenes. So don't believe that in the big clubs, the presidents or sergeants or whoever go into the club meeting and don't already know how the vote will turn out before it happens. They accomplished that behind the scenes a while back. If you don't do that, you won't be able to hold the office of president for very long. It was that different, and that was right after the initiation ritual. I call the video initiation ritual, but it focuses more on someone being expelled and those who depart of their own accord. Yeah, first shrinking phase doesn't matter. Okay, still the club is relatively stable for now. I don't know how many we were, 11 or 12. I think 11 or 12, I don't know. I don't really remember exactly anymore. I'd have to go through the names in my head, but I'd need some pictures to help. And the first party was still a disappointment. So what was coming up next? We had to pick dates and get to know the other clubs. Usually the secretary is responsible for that, meaning the person who keeps the records gets the task. Okay, check out where the parties are, when, what time, where can we go, where are we going, and who are the contacts. Then we got in touch with all kinds of different clubs. Of course, we still had our connections. After Stir was kicked out in Rostock, we made new contacts in Rostock. But Rostock had just split up, and those who had beef internally went on to found the Hells Angels Schwerin. That was also the one who initiated my expulsion from the Red Devils. He went there. I think he became president there. But later on it kept changing in the clubs. It went back and forth more and more often. And then they founded Schwerin, and there we could sit at the same table and greet each other and so on. But it wasn't like I wanted to say, okay, let's become thick as brothers. Our contact with Rostock was excellent. There were new leaders who didn't want to run the club as a riot unit, people I was friends with for a very long time and whom I valued a lot as individuals. Of course, today, after I left, there's no contact possible, but there were people I valued very much as individuals who weren't looking for war, territorial claims, maximization, and so on. And I always say that there are also very clever people in the clubs who can do normal business, who don't just do crime, so we shouldn't lump everything together, which is something I'm sometimes accused of. But that's not the case. I'm not saying that everyone in 1% of the clubs is a criminal, but they tend to lean that way, and they're more likely to get involved in criminal activities. And if they hang out with criminals, they shouldn't complain when they're thrown into the same pot and get searched as well. Maybe now it's finally explained once and for all, then I can just copy this clip and show it again and again. The contact there was excellent. Their clubhouse just never got finished. I think because of internal disputes, financial resources, and also not really having the drive to do it. This new structure that was there wasn't really like, yay, riding motorcycles all the time, clubhouse parties and all that. They weren't really like that. There was also, so to speak, an influx even to Rostock of people from outside. Many from the former right-wing extremist scene also joined in Rostock to strengthen this charter again. There was an influx from the Magdeburg area, also Potsdam, then from Lower Saxony and so on, and they reshaped it. But the leadership worked there. We usually went out to eat with them or something like that, talked there, and of course as a club we weren't yet at the point where they said, okay, 100% acceptance. We still had to straighten ourselves out a bit as a club, establish ourselves, show that we really wanted it. And of course we had the big advantage that we were already involved in certain business areas like tattoos, the red light scene, and the drug business. We'll get back to that a bit in the next part. And so it was a mix. We accepted the club a little bit and also the criminal side, and we were almost on equal footing. Being on equal footing at that level almost never happens. There's always someone looking down on the other. That's how it was, at least that's how I felt. Then there was also... The first meeting with the president took place at Committee Schwerin, which is also where we attended the first party. They had a clubhouse, kind of in a semi-industrial area, mixed use or something like that. And yeah, those were the kinds of parties. I don't know if I was ever at a gremium party where I could say it was good. I apologize for the harshness. I don't know. I'd really have to think about it. I think it's even stiffer there. even stiffer than with many, like with the other clubs, because they have so much self-confidence that they can throw cool parties once they reach a certain level, especially when they're among themselves or with clubs they're friends with. But with Grimium, it was really the case that there were so many people there who otherwise wouldn't be like that in real life. But when they had the Grimium patch on, then it was a wild party and they acted like they were the toughest and everyone should get out of their way. And I always had the feeling that everyone there was trying to act tough. I mean, I almost felt like everyone was, when with us, they could truly let loose. I don't intend this as an overall critique of that club, though it seems that way, right? But that's really not how it's supposed to be. But at their parties, they had a really hard time letting loose. At least with the northern ones we dealt with. And we were at their party too. And I had Mike with my business partner there, who hadn't joined us in the Black Squad. He also knew one of those guys who had joined in from prison. And then there were two guys visiting from Berlin. I don't even know what the Berlin club was called. I think it was just Gremium Motorcycle Berlin. But I think they had a special name, something like that. It was a mix of current and former hooligans. Right-wing extremists or activists. Yeah, we met them at the party, chatted a bit and so on. They said, yeah, we're going to have a party soon too and so on. Yeah, we'll see if we can come by Berlin and all that. It's quite a distance and so on. But yeah, why not? Yeah, and then we had... like I said, we were sitting there. Then there was some bottled beer. And then there's always some kind of bockwurst and a slice of toast and stuff. And we didn't want that anymore. We wanted to make it cooler somehow. But I just didn't get into it. We were just sitting there, and it was also these courtesy visits. Some people who have experience with the Rockers know about these courtesy visits. Yeah, they're having a party, so who wants to go, who's going? And everyone says, Philip, are you going too? Why me? No, I don't feel like it. Yeah, and then two people get ordered to go there. They drive 3 hours and hang out there for 2 hours, eat a sausage, have 2 colors, and shake hands with all. Say Rotan and then goodbye, like the club showed us respect. They were at our party. And then 8 weeks later, the other club also has to send 3 people there again because you were at our party. Real talk, guys. This is real talk. There are clubs that are good friends with each other. They spend weekends together. They party. We did that too and so on. Later on, we were also one of the clubs that most people always wanted to come to. We partied without a care, dancing and mingling with women. But as I always say, I'll elaborate on that later. Also, we met motorcycle friends too, something like an association like the Grey Bulls from Güstrow. They come from Güstrow, I think. And back then we used to look down on them, but today I really, really respect them for the fact that as a community, they're only together for motorcycle riding, where it's really just about partying, so respect to them. But there we have, that's where 1%ers look, yes, down on regular biker clubs. And then biker clubs look down on motorcycle friends. And motorcycle friends, if they're really being silly, they even look down on regular free bikers. That's the business, guys. That's the business in the motorcycle scene. And for us, it was supposed to be that we gradually visited the clubs because there's so much pressure in the scene. Who belongs to the Bandidos, who belongs to the Hells Angels, and so on. And then for the Mecklenburg area, that means Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, which is Mecklenburg and Vorpommern. We were in Mecklenburg, and a round table was supposed to be established there. Despite a round table taking place with various participants, the first major clash occurred. Do you know the details, guys? I'll elaborate in the next part. As always, ahoy from the coast.